Welcome to Ascend Your Path. Who's feeling blessed? I am. I'm so blessed to have you all with me today. And I don't take this time lightly because you could be doing anything else with your time. My name is Diane Cunningham, your host and founder of Ascend Your Path. I also have my co-host, the beautiful and magnificent Olga Kavanagh.
Hey. Good morning and welcome.
Yes. Today you're in for a treat. We have the awesome Jim Hetherington, transformational coach, and the dynamic duo, Patty Kennedy and Teresa Dukes. They will be sharing their wisdom on unlocking personal empowerment and transformation. Olga, I know we have a little bit of housekeeping rules. You want to share the housekeeping rules?
Yes, so our amazing speakers are going to speak for about 30-35 minutes, Paddy and Teresa for more. But please keep your questions to the end. We will have time to answer your questions, or you can post your question in the chat. And we are going to record them and ask them at the end of the presentation. And we are not going to have any washroom breaks because, you can go off camera, you can be mute, and you can go to the washroom while listening to our amazing speakers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olga. So before I bring Jim to the stage, let me share a little bit about Jim. Jim is a transformational coach and passionate advocate for personal growth. With his profound insights and practical tools, Jim empowers individuals to embrace change, overcome challenges, and unlock their fullest potential. Jim's topic today is Speaking from the Heart, Transformative Power of Authentic Words. Join me as I welcome Jim to the stage.
Well, thank you so much, Diane. I really appreciate what you and Olga are doing. This is fantastic. How many enjoy or are looking forward to what they are going to do through this platform? I'm excited to be here because I love sharing value. I love being in rooms where everything is here just to elevate, right? Does everybody like that kind of a thing where you're just here to elevate? You're just here to be lifted up. You're just here to be encouraged. And I thought it would be valuable and important to talk about something that we use every day. I suspect you may have used it a few hundred times already today. And it's our words. How many use words daily? We use words all the time to communicate things. And we know that our words, when spoken from the heart, have the ability to influence and impact and inspire. Would you agree? The words spoken from our heart have the ability to influence, impact. Words spoken away from our heart have the ability to insult and injure. But how do we get separated from those lines? How do we get divided with our heart? I want to share my theory on how we get divided, how this becomes a thing in our lives, and I want to give you 5 steps that you can use to get back into alignment. Is that okay? So I want to talk about our hearts. We get separated from our hearts through the experiences that we go through. Each of us go through experiences every day, every month, every year. We go through experiences, and those experiences come in 2 forms. They're either helpful or they're harmful. They're either to help, encourage us, inspire, and lift us up, or they're not. They're just pulling us down and they're just dragging us down. So we could get all Freudian, we could get all Jung, we could break it all down and come up with a gazillion different theories, but in a nutshell, that's it. Experiences come and they're either helpful or harmful. Think about going to school, right? We learn that 2 + 2 is 4. That's good knowledge. That's something that we need. That's helpful. So we keep on to that. We know that eating an apple a day keeps the doctor right. That's good knowledge. We'll keep that up here. But then we go through the schoolyard and we might be bullied. We might be teased. We might get a teacher that doesn't quite see eye to eye with us. And what happens is that comes in and it doesn't get stored up here, although it does. The memory stays up here, but the residue goes into our hearts. And over time, our hearts begin to get filled, and it reduces our capacity to speak words of truth, because now what we're doing is we're setting up walls, we're setting up defenses around our heart to protect ourselves. Well, I'm not going to be bullied again, so we create new dialogue. And that's what I mean by separating and speaking away from our heart, is to protect ourselves. We begin to create new dialogue so that we can stay safe. If we had a bad experience in a relationship, for example, we create a dialogue and we say, that's never going to happen again because I'm going to demand this, I'm going to expect this, I'm going to want this. And so we go into relationships not necessarily with our heart, but with the dialogue that we've already created to protect ourselves so the bad experiences don't happen again. Does that make sense? So over the course of our time, walking this planet, I've been walking this planet for 64 years, so I've had to go back and deal with some of these dialogues that I've created and that I begin to live out, because I look at myself in the mirror and I say certain things over and over again, and you probably do the same thing. When you look at yourself in the mirror, what do you see? Oftentimes we see past experiences, words that people have said, things that people have done, and they become the dialogue that we use over and over again. You know, they say in the dictionary, there's about 140,000 words in the dictionary, and adults on average know about 40,000 words, but we only use about 1,000 daily. For example, you know the word astronaut. How many know the word astronaut? How many used the word astronaut in 2024? I never did. How many used it in 2023? So we know words that we don't use all the time. How about encyclopedia? We know encyclopedia, but when was the last time you used it in a sentence? When was the last time you referred to anything within an encyclopedia? So we know words, but we just use the same words over and over again. And guys, we're terrible with words. Men, we use on average about 5,000 words a day. Women, you're about 15 to 20,000 words a day. We have a universal word. That's what guys use for a lot of different things. How was work? Are you going to go to the gym? How was dinner? Right. So we use the same word all over there. So men, we have a reduced vocabulary. Women, you're just incredible. Why? Because you're emotional. You have the ability to connect with your emotion. You have the ability to share it, whereas guys seem to shut it down. And so it's the experiences that we grow through that cause us to create dialogue. But how do we get back to speaking with an authentic heart? Because we toss that around a lot, don't we? Speaking with authenticity, speaking with clarity, speaking truth, speaking from our heart. But how do we really get back to speaking from the heart? Well, I want to share these 5 principles with you. And these are things that I've reflected on over the years, and they've helped me to get back to that place. Getting back to the place where I can create a new dialogue. Because here's the thing that happens. When our mind, our brain, and our heart agree, it reduces our ability to speak. It takes our voice away. Because of these past experiences, they can well up in our hearts. And when our mind agrees and says, oh, you're right, this isn't good, or I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not tall enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not able to do it. And once we agree, we lose our voice. And part of what we want to do here today is get back to using our words. Would you agree? We want to get back to using our words to communicate. I'll give you an example. I shared this recently at an event. And at the end, one of the women said to me, she said, that explains everything. She had traumatic experiences growing up in relationships. She was abused and she had a lot of problems. Whenever she tried to communicate, or whenever she went into a new relationship, there was something in her heart and her head that connected, and it choked her up. Whenever she tried to express it, she wasn't able to express it because she just choked up. She lost her voice because her head and her heart agreed that those traumatic experiences, the dialogue you've created, is right. Therefore, you can't step into freedom. So part of my intention today is to help us to set back into freedom. Who's ready to be set free? Who's ready to start using their words? Who's ready to start increasing the vocabulary? So let's start. The first thing we need to do is that we need to focus on the area that we want to change. We need to become aware of it. You can't change what you're unaware of. So we have to start thinking, what kind of dialogue do I use when I go into particular situations? Let's take January 1st. I'm sure everybody here on the call probably said that I'm going to start eating better, right? I'm starting the year off. No more cookies for me. I'm not eating cookies until December 2025, right? So we all started off with that. So what is it that made us aware of it? Is it, the bloating, just sitting around on the couch like a log? We can't move, we can't do anything. But what made us aware of it? But now when we look at health diet and our diet and our eating, what is the dialogue that we've created around that? Because we've all created it. How many times have, I found myself just kind of wandering around, I'm bored, next thing I know, I'm standing in front of the fridge making a sandwich, right? Or you sit down and you open up a bag of chips and you eat one, and next thing you know, you're eating the last one out of the bag. What is it that causes us to do these kind of things? So becoming aware of the area that you want to change is the first step. And these principles can be applied to any area of life. They can be applied to health. They can be applied to your relationships. They can be applied to business. They can be applied to your finances. They can be applied to your spiritual life. Any area of your life you can apply these principles to. So the first thing in the first step is just becoming aware. And just saying, okay, what do I need to be aware? What dialogue am I? What stories am I telling? What stories have I created? What barriers have I put up? Why do I keep hitting those same walls? Why do I keep saying those same things? When I get into a situation, I always react and respond a similar way. Why is that? So we got to become aware of what it is that we want to change. You take your kitchen, for example, right? We could be busy in there cooking and making things and slopping things on the floor, and crumbs are falling on the floor. There's stuff all over the place. And it's not until somebody says, hey, we need to clean up this floor, that all of a sudden we're aware of, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm in a mess. I need to do it. And all of a sudden now we're focused on that, right? But we got to become aware of it. Once we become aware of it, then we move into the next step, and that's to start recording it. We need to start writing things down. Need to start writing down the dialogue, writing down the things that we say, writing down the responses, writing down the replies, writing down our reactions, and starting to make note of those things. And then we can start Googling, we can start searching out, what can I do to change that approach? What can I do to exchange that for a different dialogue? Google is a great thing, right? We don't have to, speaking of encyclopedias, we don't have to go to the good old library and pull out those great big books and look things up. What do? You open up the internet, you search something, and all that information comes flooding into you. Right? If you decide you want to have a pink thimble to start doing some needlepoint, you Google pink thimbles and you'll get inundated by ads for pink thimbles forever. Well, Google can be your best friend when researching something that you want to change. Once you become aware of it, you can start to research and say, how can I do it better? How can I do it different? How can I be more efficient? How can I change this? How can I succeed in this area? And you can start to Google what other people are doing, what other people have done to be successful, and that stuff will just start coming into you. And then record all those ideas, start writing all those things down. Once you've got them recorded, then you can move into the next step. And the next step is to start creating a plan. Once you've got the information, it's like my one mentor used to say, he says, when you want to research an area or want to get to the bottom line of something, ask why questions until there's no more why. Just ask why questions until there's nothing left. And then once you've asked all the why questions, now you can start to create a plan. Now you can start to put things together. And here's the thing. We live in threes. Most of what we do on the planet is in threes. We live in past, present, and future. Would you agree with that? That's primarily what our life is built up of. But I want to push out the boundaries a little bit further. Anybody that hangs around with me any length of time knows that I like to do things in fives. I like to open things up. Like if I put a poll up here right now and said, give me 3 reasons why you like or dislike pizza, you can come up with 3 things easily. Or your 3 favorite toppings, right? You could come up with 3 things easily. But if I said, give me 5, you'd have to push that a little bit further. You'd have to step down a little bit further. You'd have to clear a little bit more clutter out of the heart to get down to 5 reasons. So I like 5s. So if we take past, present, and future and expand that, let's look at that. So Let's say January 1st, we want to start a new year with a new way and get on a diet. It's not the cookies that you ate over the holiday season in 2024 that have affected your health. Would you agree with that? It's the cookies from the past, the distant past, that have affected you today. It's the Christmases past. Almost sound like Scrooge in the Christmas Carol. It's the Christmases past that have caused the situation. And moving forward, going into the future, we need to expand and not think about next week or next month. How many agree that it's easy to keep a diet up for a month, right? Any one of us could do it for 30 days. Let's do it for 30 months. Now that's a different story. So now we got to extend it and start pushing out to the distant future. Because your diet, what you're eating today, isn't necessarily going to affect you a week or so from now. But 10 years from now, what you're eating will affect you. The diet, the habits, the routines that we have will affect us 10 years. So we need to push things out. So that brings us to distant past, present, future, and distant future. Those are the fives that I want to encourage us to begin to look at things and use that framework, because that helps us create a plan, because we're not planning just for the next 30 days. Although sometimes we do need to create a 30-day plan for something. But the long term is much better. What's it going to look like in 10 years from now? What's it going to look like 20 years from now? And begin to push out those boundaries and start to include that in our plan. So that's the next step. So once you've got your plan, now you're ready to step into step 4. And that is the key to success, is to change your environment. You are not going to eat better if the kitchen pantry is full of cookies and chips and candy. You need to change that environment so it's conducive for the success that you want to have. Would you agree? In order to have the success that we want, we need to create an environment that's conducive to that success. Let's take health goals again. Let's say we're all going to start exercising. Everybody's going to commit to exercising at 5 o'clock every day. You come home at 5 o'clock, you finish in your computer in your office, and you go out of the office, and what happens? You're too exhausted, you're too tired, and you're not ready to do it. Then you got to start looking around for your gym equipment. You can't find the other running shoe. The dog took off with the running shoe. You can't find your favorite socks or your yoga pants or whatever it is. And you got all kinds of excuses and reasons. And half an hour later, you have no gym equipment and you're completely exhausted, frustrated, and you give up for the day. The better way to set up the environment would be to prepare the night before. Get that gym bag ready. Have it hanging at the side door. Put it just outside your office. Have it in the back seat of your car so that it's ready, so that as soon as you're done at 5 o'clock, you can pick up and change and shift gears. I know a guy one time that when he came home from work, when he walked from his car to his house, at the front of his house, he had columns over a porch. And when he walked up to the steps, he passed the column, he would stop and he would tap the column. That was the mental shift for him, that I'm entering into something different. I've done with the office for the day. I've tapped out. I'm entering into these front doors. I'm now my families. I'm now my partners. I'm now the kids. I'm now for me. We need to have ourselves set up in a way that we can set our environments up for success. I ran my own renovation company for 30 years. And often I would be asked by young guys to come and mentor them and help them through the process, because there's a little bit more than just taking on a project and 30 minutes later, like HDTV tells you, the project's done. There's a little bit more to it. So often these guys were going through the progression of having small little projects, small little renovations, and then they get the opportunity for something big. And who's going to say no to something big? Right? Nobody's going to say no. 2025 is going to be filled with big things, and we need to be ready for those big things. So these guys would say yes to them. They get into the project. They're way over their head. They, Jim, can we hire you to come and work with us to get this thing back on track? We have no idea what we're doing. We're falling behind and we're going to lose everything. So I would go in and I begin to walk around And one of the first things that I was aware of is they were taking me from room to room. I noticed that they took the debris off of the shelves and off of the walls and the old wall coverings and the old trim, and they just laid it strewn around the house. They brought every tool from their truck because they're going to need it at some point. So they brought every tool from their truck into the truck. They were strewn all over the place. Now they're starting to rewire and replumb and refit things. So now they've got plumbing equipment and supplies and stuff laying all over the place. And then they're starting to insulate areas. So they got bundles of insulation. They're starting to tuck insulation in the walls here and there. And then they're starting to drywall certain sections that are ready. So now they got new drywall packed on top of this old stuff. They're cutting and fitting, and they got all the garbage and the debris from that. And the first thing I did after walking around for 30 minutes is I would say, you need to clean up your environment. You cannot function like this. And many of us are unwilling or unaware that we need to deal with past experiences so that we can set up our environments differently. Sometimes the greatest environment that we need to change is right here between our ears. Sometimes that's the first environment we need to change. Getting rid of that old dialogue, getting rid of those old things so that we can set ourselves up for success to move forward. Does that make sense? So shifting our environment, setting ourselves up for success. We're setting ourselves up for failure. If January 1st we say, I'm not going to eat any more cookies, but there's cookies all over the counter and all over the pantry. I'm going to start eating healthy vegetables and fruits, and there's no vegetables or fruits. There's all processed stuff in your cupboards. There's no way you can be successful. You're setting yourself up for failure. And we do the same thing in life and business. We set ourselves up for failure in relationships. We set ourselves up for failure in finances because we haven't gotten rid of some of the old dialogue. So changing our environment sometimes means changing this. Sometimes means dealing with this, dealing with our heart. Then, once we have that all together, then you're ready for the fifth step. The one that you're waiting for. The one that we're ready to go, and that's action. We're ready to take action. We've got everything in place. We've done our research. We know what we're aware of what we want to change. We're aware of that. We're ready to go. We've got everything in plan. We've changed our environment. Now we're ready to move. Now we're ready to take action. But action comes with sometimes cleaning up and inviting other people in. Sometimes we need to get rid of the negative and bring in the positive. Sometimes we need a coach. Sometimes we need someone to inspire and have in our corner to keep us accountable, right? To keep us. I see somebody put in discipline. You know, that's sometimes a swear word for people. The big D word, discipline, is just a swear word. But it's so key and it's so important in taking action is to discipline ourselves. But how many have noticed that sometimes staying on track with a goal is hard to do on our own? We need communities like this. We need people in our corner that are ready to and want to serve us to take us to that next level. So taking action means we need to look at who we need to invite into our world in order to make that a success, to make that a reality. Is that making sense? So those are the 5 principles that I use, and I use them in any area. And I've seen some amazing results with people saying, that's it? Those 5 steps, and I can transform everything? Yeah, you can. I know that there's a lot packed in to those 5 steps. Like I've created acronyms for all of those words, and I didn't want to share those because then we'd be going, you know, what did he say around environment? You know, because that's a long acronym to use a number of words to spell out environment, and we'd be struggling with that. So I didn't want to put all that together. But what I did do is I've recorded a video, it's about 45 minutes long, that has all of these steps in that goes into the acronyms, goes in a little bit deeper. Would that be of value to anybody? Would that be helpful to have a video where you could watch back and look at that, pause it and say, okay, I need to think about this. I need to make some notes on this. I need to really dig into this acronym. If you think that would be helpful, I'd love to gift that to you because I really want to be able to help set us up for success. And I know that sometimes when we get on these calls, trying to remember all the stuff is a challenge, right? One of the first rules of thumb is don't trust your memory because it'll let shit down. We need to record things. That's why I say the second step is to record things, write things down. I mean, I've lost a lot of great thoughts over the years because I didn't write them down. So here, what I want you to do, the easiest way for me to get this to you is to text me. So I gave Olga a link, And it's what I want you to do is you can do it on your computer or do it on your phone. We'll do it right now. It will take 1 minute to do it. Is just open up your phone and type in your Google search or your Chrome, whatever you use for searching things, type jimh360.com. Just jimh360.com and just hit that. That'll open up a website. That'll open up my website. A pop-up is going to come up. Just X that out of the way. And you will see up at the top, it says contact. Just hit the contact and just send me a text. That way I've got it right here. It won't get lost. It'll be my phone. In fact, I'm going to look because I know we've got people from UK, from Dubai, from the US, from Canada. We got people from all over. So I'm curious to see who is going to get the first text into my phone. So I'm going to be looking for it. So jimh360.com and just go to text and send me a text. And afterwards, then you can save the contact information. And then you can get connected with all my social media and all my platforms and stuff so we can stay connected that way. Look at that. Of all people, Dubai was the quickest one. All the way across the ocean, Dubai was the first one to text me. That is absolutely incredible. Lightning fingers over there. It's amazing. It must be the Wi-Fi that they've got boosting over in Dubai. They've got it up on that big tower and it's just boosting out everywhere. So all right, so who's next? Who else have I got here? Oh, I saw somebody else come in here. Chrislyn, I see Chrislyn. Chrislyn, awesome to see you there. And Roseanne and Sally, now they're starting to pour in. Now we're getting there. Now the US is starting to catch up to Dubai. All right, so I will keep an eye out for these things. I'll make sure that I get that to my team and then we'll get that out when I get that put together. I'm just finishing up the touches. I was explaining to everybody earlier, everything was kind of running well, and then I touched something last night. And so things aren't working as well as they were before. So I will make sure I get that to the team and we can get that out to you next week. And so you can look for that video from me. But I want to get back, just for the last couple of minutes that we have here, I want to get back to how this all ties back into our hearts. Because once we start going through all these steps, once we start going through these things, now we can begin to create new dialogue. We can start to break down some of the barriers, break down some of the walls by getting rid of some of the old things that we say to ourselves, the old things that we use to defend ourselves or to make excuses. You understand there's a difference between reasons and excuses. Right? A reason I can't go work out is I twisted my knee and I can't walk. An excuse is I can't find my running shoe. I don't know what to do. Well, you go barefoot. That's what you do. So there's difference between reasons and excuses. So now we can begin to break down these walls and we can start to get back in. Because what happens is when our heart and our head agree with the statements that we say, with the lines that we created, with the dialogue that we've created, when they agree, we will lose our voice. It cancels out our voice because now all of a sudden there's a struggle between our head and our heart, and they cancel out our voice. Recently, I was sharing this with an audience, and we were talking about this whole helpful, hurtful, and losing the voice. And a woman was sharing just how she just got choked up whenever she started to talk about some situations that came up in her life, some of the experiences that she had coming up in her life. And it was because her head and her heart came in agreement, and it canceled out her voice. The other side of it is we can have a war between our head and the heart. How many have had that happen? Our heart says one thing, our head says another thing, and what happens? We're inactive. We don't take action, or we make a bad choice. So it's valuable and important that we get back to this, and it's only through exercises and going through things that we can begin to get ourselves back. As I was researching and going through these things a couple of years ago, I was thinking about how these affect us. And all of a sudden I had a memory of when I was in grade 1. So what's that, 6, 7 years of age? I'm left-handed. The teacher that I had in grade 1 thought left-handed people were broken. Left-handed people are just of the devil. There's something wrong with you if you're using your left hand. And she forced me to sit on my left hand and keep it behind my back and use my right hand. And you remember the old school teachers that walked around with the yardstick? They used it for pointing on the blackboard. They used it for pointing out bad students. Well, whenever she would see me using my left hand, crack across the table would come this yardstick to get my attention, to make me sit on my hand again. And I got thinking, years later, I was thinking, well, the mindset that was set in motion was, she's authority, she knows better, I must be broken. And I didn't realize that, but I carried that through my entire school career. I ended up quitting when I was in grade 9. I quit high school. By the time I was grade 9, I had about a grade 4 reading level because I completely withdrew. And then I realized decades later that was affecting decisions and choices I was making, because I would step out to do something. Oh, wait a minute, I might be wrong. I might not be getting this right. Maybe I need to consult someone else. Maybe I need to think about this a little bit longer. Has that happened to anybody else? And we begin to do that. But if we trace those back, it comes from a mindset that was instilled from an experience that we possibly went through. And so I discovered that over the years. And so I began to incorporate a number of these different things, like the helpful, hurtful model, the going back and looking at these things, looking at our distant past and how they affect us, because we get tethered to those experiences and we can only go so far until we deal with them. And I created a writing workshop, and it was just supposed to be writing. I thought I was just going to be teaching people how to write books and create content and do all that wonderful stuff. But I ended up teaching us how to unlock our story, because we can get locked in our stories through the experiences that we go through. And so now I've expanded that workshop to 2 days, where we go back and we start looking at these things so we can unpack our story, because I believe everybody has a story to tell. I believe everybody has a message to share. I believe every one of us can get reconnected to those words of truth from our heart, so that we can speak with clarity and speak with authenticity from our heart. So as a second gift, I want to gift you, anybody here today, I want to gift you a ticket to come to my 2-day workshop. So if you text me workshop at that same number, I will make sure that you get that link to the free ticket to come and join me for those 2 days. And my time is up. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Jim. Wasn't that awesome? Jim, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Oh wow! Every time you because this is not your first time. Before we were Next Level You, but it's not the first time on the summit, and you always bring gold.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
I see someone had a question in the chat, and I think that was Deepa, and Deepa is in Australia, I believe.
Oh, wonderful.
So Deepa's question was, how do we clear deeply ingrained fears?
Deeply ingrained fears. Take those same 5 steps. First of all, become aware of what it is, because fear is just something that we're trying to anticipate. It's something unknown. It's something that hasn't happened yet, and we're fearful of it. We get anxieties. We get tension over things. So we need to examine it. So I would suggest use these 5 steps and look at it. Say, become aware of it, and say, okay, what is it that I'm fearful of? What am I? Why am I fearful of that? Where did that come from? Where did it stem from? And what benefit is it for me to continue to be fearful? And how can I overcome that fear? So I would encourage you to look at it and examine what it is, because oftentimes we're fearful of things that we haven't named. Once we put a name to something, it almost eliminates all the fear, because now we know what to call it. So rather than saying I'm fearful of a situation, or we're just fearful in our minds or our hearts to move forward in something, now we identify it, we put a name to it, now we go, oh, it's just you. And we put a name to it, and then it breaks the fear, it breaks the power that it has. So becoming aware of it and giving it a name will help you to move forward.
Great. So Deepa, does that help you? You can unmute yourself.
Thanks for the answer, Jim. Yeah. Yeah, I do know where it comes from childhood, and it's just I've just noticed it throughout life as something that stops me from being all of me.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And sometimes, you know, the truth of it, Deepa, is that we need to identify or recognize that the way we responded to a situation when we were younger was okay when we were younger. And we can thank that little girl. You can thank little Deepa for responding that way. But now you can bring her into the present, right? We talk about distant past and past, and now you can bring her into the present and say, okay, I get why you responded the way you did. Now I can see things differently. Now I see things through a different lens. Now I'm more mature and wise. So let's apply this to it. And now we reframe the way we responded to it. And that's part of the exercise I go through the workshop is just reframing. We bring things from our past, bring it into the present, and we just give it a new frame. We put a new label around it. It's just taking an old picture and putting a gold frame around it so that now when we think about that memory, that new frame comes up and we go, oh, this is the way I used to look at it, but now this is how I look at it. And so we begin to reframe it so that moving forward, that's the image and the picture we take into the future. Does that make sense? I can see your head shaking, like you're up at the top of my screen there. I can see your head shaking. So I'd invite you, if if it's possible, if it works for you, to join me on the workshop and to go through some of these things. We'll begin to unpack that for you.
I did text you with
Wonderful.
workshops, so
Yeah. And I saw somebody say, what do I text if I want the first offer? If I just saw your first text come in, I'll know that that was for the video, and I'll make sure that I get that video out. And those that are saying workshop, I'll know that you're wanting the workshop, and I'll send the link out to that. Make sure you get the free link for that one.
Thank you so much, Jim. And Olga, did I miss anything in the chat?
Yes, Jay said that he has a point to make to Jim. So Jay, if you would like to say something.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jay. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful. Thank you for the speech. This comment is more for the audience than it is for you, but I just wanted to note how you spoke with clarity and passion. In other words, from your head and your heart, and you kept things simple with very great examples that we can all associate with as you were making the 5 points. And it's interesting to me how sometimes people rely too much on tools, so they'll do a PowerPoint or whatever, and they're running through slides. And it comes across with so much more conviction and authority when you simply sit there and speak to the audience from your heart with the interest in enhancing their lives. And so I just thought this was exceptional. So I think it's a great example because this whole tenure is about learning great speaking techniques. And so I just wanted to mention to the audience that I think this is a perfect example of what we should all aspire to when we're trying to clearly and efficiently communicate to an audience. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Jay. I really appreciate you saying that to me. Thank you.
Thank you,
Paddy
Jay.
is asking when the workshop is.
Oh, yes. So the workshop is in 2 weeks. So we meet the 23rd for a couple hours just to kind of set the stage. And then it's all day, the 24th and the 25th from about 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. in Eastern. So I know when we start doing the math across the pond, like I saw Chris's eyebrows raised, going, "Oh my goodness, what's that? That's like 4 in the afternoon till 10 at night almost." So that changes things a little bit. So I get that, but yeah, please reach out and I'll see what I can do to support you.